The latest round of violence in the Gulf has rapidly escalated into a devastating multi-nation missile exchange across the region. Following 3 days of increasing tension and localized retaliations, the United States military launched a coordinated simultaneous strike against 140 individual targets across Iran. Iran immediately answered the barrage, launching waves of missiles and drones across the broader Gulf region. Caught in the center of this crossfire are international civilians, including a crew of Indian sailors trapped aboard a burning cargo vessel. The shock waves are already reaching global markets, threatening to spike crude oil prices and send global stock indexes into a dive. This regional war now threatens the stability of the entire global economy. To understand the catalyst for this intervention, we have to look at the Gulf of Oman near the Strait of Hormuz on July 12th. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched a direct attack on a Cyprus-flagged container ship passing through these waters. Iranian weapons struck the vessel, igniting a massive fire in the engine room and inflicting enough structural damage that the crew was forced to abandon the ship. Aboard that burning vessel were dozens of merchant mariners, including 11 Indian nationals. The Indian embassy in Muscat immediately coordinated with Omani authorities to launch a search and rescue operation, pulling 10 of those Indian sailors to safety. Despite the rapid response and search efforts, one Indian seafarer remains missing at sea. This specific assault on civilian infrastructure prompted a violent US intervention aimed at re-establishing the international freedom of navigation through the strait. Thousands of merchant ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz every year. Keeping this passage open is an absolute economic imperative for the US and its allies to maintain global supply chains. In response to the shipping attacks, the United States military retaliated by striking 140 distinct targets across Iran. The primary focus was on neutralizing Iran's aerial capabilities, explicitly targeting their domestic drone bases and missile launch facilities. The strikes also leveled coastal radar stations, naval bases, and critical command and control centers operated by the IRGC. The tactical objective is clear: physically dismantle the infrastructure Iran relies on to harass and attack commercial shipping. In defiance, Iranian officials stated the strait will remain closed and insisted that any ship navigating those waters must receive their explicit permission to pass. The United States has shifted its posture, moving from defensive maritime patrols to the preemptive destruction of Iranian military assets. Iran cannot match the sheer military output of the United States in a direct conflict, relying instead on asymmetric warfare. Instead of firing at American soil, Iran is launching drones and missiles at neighboring countries like Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, and Jordan. These nations are vital to American power projection. Qatar hosts the Al Udeid Air Base, the nerve center for US air operations, while Bahrain is the headquarters for the US Fifth Fleet. By dragging these Gulf states into the crossfire, Iran hopes to raise the political and financial cost of the conflict, pressuring local governments to evict American forces. For civilians in these allied nations, the reality on the ground is now defined by sudden missile strikes and the blare of air raid sirens. Iran's asymmetric strategy forces the United States into a difficult position, turning its own network of Middle Eastern military alliances into vulnerable targets. This regional instability is already spilling over into the global economy, threatening the energy supply chains and freight networks that rely on safe passage through the Gulf. For major importers like India, the immediate risk is a sharp spike in crude oil prices, which has historically triggered widespread panic across global stock markets. Meanwhile, a recent 60-day memorandum of understanding between the US and Iran for peace talks has completely collapsed, leaving a massive diplomatic void. Current intelligence suggests the United States may now be preparing for a prolonged multi-month military campaign across the region. There is still a narrow window for de-escalation as Oman desperately works back channels to mediate and restart negotiations between the two powers. But until those diplomats find a breakthrough, the safety of international commerce remains hostage to every missile fired in the Gulf.